Hey folks, welcome to chapter one of the HR textbook. We're going to explore just kind of general overview of HR in this chapter. It's going to be pretty short. I'm trying to keep all of these videos down to less than 15 minutes. So one of the things I want you to think about particularly as we go through the entirety of the class is uh, how HR is framed. It's almost like they're caricatures of themselves. If you look at Toby from The Office, that is not, even though it seemed like he was doing the right thing all the time, that's still a caricature of what HR truly is. Um, in the office space, the HR rep there, the two Bobs were, again, that's not really how HR is. So I want you to think about one, again, why are they always portraying HR as caricatures, not really what they're like? And then two, I want you to think about what is HR really like? The way I view human resources is one, it's really about being a value add, right? Being a subject matter expert on many people issues and topics, and then just being a support system for managers. And so again, as we move through this, I really want you to think about just what truly HR is all about. And then the other thing I want you to think about as we go through this entirety of the course is HR the only one responsible for the three functions of HR? Is HR the only one responsible for hiring, developing, and retaining staff? And it's not the case. Management. So, for those of you not interested in going to human resources, as managers, you're really the ones responsible for these three activities. It's the manager who's responsible in the end, making the hiring decision and developing their staff members and then keeping their staff members. HR plays a part in supporting managers, but in the end, this is all about uh, 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 the managers who are responsible for these activities. Okay, so I really want you to think about as I talk about every chapter in the textbook and all the on fire chapters. I really want you to think about as a manager, how am I responsible for these things? So let's get started. And we'll go ahead and go with so what is human resource management? So the definition is uh, the policies, practice, and system that influence employees, right? Behavior, attitudes, performance, their overall responsibility in an organization. HRM is concern of HR department, all managers, um, all managers, and then top level executives. So they're responsible for supporting all of these different departments. So again, they support all the managers. They support top level executives, and they also support everyone in the HR department. In terms of policies, practices, and systems, it's all about how do we make sure people have the right behavior, the right attitudes, and perform the way that they're supposed to perform. Okay. So overall, again, like I stated, the HR, uh, the three functions of human resource management is to hire, develop, and retain. All of these behavior, attitudes, performance all have to do with how do we hire the right people with the right attitudes? How do we develop people so they perform better? And how do we keep people? Okay. Another thing I would like you to think about, how might an organization's approach to HR impact its overall success? I really want you to think about that. So, when you think about the most important resource of the four resources of business, finance, capital, HR, and information, human resource, even more so than finance, has the greatest impact on the success of an organization. Okay. Uh, Next, these are in terms of strategic HR management. Here are kind of the nine overarching themes or the nine overarching responsibilities. So they analyze and design work. right? So they're really the ones in coordination and in partnership with the managers. They're looking at how you develop a job description. How do you design work, right? And then the HR planning process. How do we make sure that we're ready when it comes times to hiring for a new project or hiring for a new launch of a product. So we got to make sure that we're planning effectively, right? And in order to plan effectively in HR, you have to look at what the economy is doing, what unemployment looks like, what revenues look like in the organization. Like any planning process, this is probably the most important part of the HR process. It's about making sure that we don't overhire or we don't underhire. And in order to do that, you have, particularly in larger organizations, you have analysts that go through and they go, okay, so we've got this new sales group we're hiring for because we're launching a new product. How are we going to make sure we hire? Is the unemployment rate such that there's going to be good people out there for us to hire, right? And if not, what are we going to do to go out and find them? The other part is the recruiting piece. How do we effectively recruit, right? How do we effectively recruit? How do we go to job fairs? Do we go to colleges and universities? Where do we post? How do we go out and find people? Or are we exclusively using LinkedIn? All the things that we're doing to recruit. The fourth piece of strategic HR management is the selection, right? How do we select the right candidate? What are the right questions we ask? Do we do testing? How do we do our references? And so all that part is part of the selection process. Okay. Now remember, those first three, management, the accounting manager who's hiring accounting folks, they're just as responsible as the HR manager in facilitating these functions. Okay. Then we get to the other part of the HR management system, training and development. How do we make sure that our people have everything they need and all the knowledge they need to succeed? Performance management. How are we evaluating our staff? Are we using objective or subjective performance management? Are we tracking their KPIs? Are we measuring them on revenues? Are we measuring them on calls? Are we measuring them on project success? What are the things that we're doing to manage them and manage their performance? But also, are we managing the right performance activities? Right? And so we have to first determine what are the things that we are measuring. And if we are measuring that, is that the right thing to measure? So again, that comes back to the the planning process. The other things we look at for HR management is compensation. Are we doing compensation analysis with our competitors? What's it like? Compensation changes, folks, not just from position and level, years experience, but also San Diego's different than Mobile, Alabama. It's different than San Francisco, right? So compensation is a very complex thing to think about, right? And so you have to, that's why a lot of companies have compensation analysts tied to HR. And so again, is compensation the only thing? Or are we thinking about benefits? How do we tie benefits into compensation? The other thing is employee relations. Again, yes, the manager is responsible for this, but a lot of times employees go right to HR for any issues. So in order to be a good HR manager, a good HR employee, you have to be a people person. That's just ideally you want to be a good people person. You want to have high empathy, you want to have high understanding, you want to be a good listener. And so employee relations are all about making sure that our employees are happy and they want to stay there. We want to keep our good employees. And then finally, we look at company performance. All these things are tied specific to how our company is doing. Okay. Human resources and company performance. Okay. So, how are these two tied? So, human capital, an organization's employees described in terms of their training, experience, judgment, intelligence, relationships, and insights. Sustainable competitive advantage, right? This equals sustainable competitive advantage. Human resources provide advantage because they are valuable, rare, cannot be imitated, and have no good substitutes. No matter what you think of AI, no matter what you think of AI, and how how it's going to take over everything, you still in almost every single uh, company or job, you have to have that human touch. You have to have that human touch, right? We consider employees human capital, right? And in order to get the most out of that human capital, we train them, we look for specific experience, we look for ones that have good judgment, look for ones that have good intelligence, relationships, and insight. But I do think thinking about human capital or employees as human capital does kind of a disservice to them. So I would ask you, how does viewing employees as human capital change how organizations might invest in their workforce, right? If they're just capital, like finance or like a desk, how does that, how would that affect how potentially we might invest in that person, or how we might even hire that person, right? And then again, when we think about AI, how worried about are you about AI? Okay, so if people are create the sustainable competitive advantage, right? Because they're valuable, they're rare. A good employee, folks, is rare, cannot be imitated. I don't care what you do. The personal touch is just not there with AI, right? AI can do a lot of lower order, uh, kind of menial tasks that should free us up to do more meaningful, higher order tasks. But again, you cannot imitate a person with AI. There are no good substitutes for the human touch. And so again, these are how they're tied to company performance. You have to have good people in order for your company to do well. You just can't have it, right? You can't have a sustainably focused company. You look at any company, you look at Patagonia, you look at JP Morgan Chase, um, you look at Nordstrom, you look at Enterprise, Rent-A-Car, you look at any organization. It's driven by its people, right? It's driven by its people. Even more so, I would say, than its products. They're all people focused companies, right? Southwest Airlines, Herb Kelleher specifically stated, we are not in the travel business. We are in the people business. And he didn't even mean his customers. He had the mindset when he started Southwest, if I hire great people and I take care of those great people, they will then take care of my customers. Okay. And so that's the mindset I want you to have. Company performance is almost 100% dictated on the people that work there. Okay. Um, Next, if we look at uh, high performance work systems, right? So the definition of a high performance work system is technology, organizational structure, people, and processes all working together to give an organization a competitive advantage. Technology is a part of it, right? Organizational structure is a part of it, but it's the people and processes all working together to give that's what gives the organization a competitive advantage. Okay. Next, the components of it. Development of training programs. You have to have amazing training programs. Recruitment of people with new skill sets, right? I always say when you're out looking for people to bring into your organization, look for people that bring something that maybe your organization doesn't already have. Or if you already have it, this person brings another level to that, right? So we're always looking to get better. If we have the mindset that we're always looking to get better with the people that we hire, as opposed to just hiring the same old, we're going to get better. We're going to be a high performing team. And then the rewards for teamwork, flexibility, and learning, right? We want to reward people who achieve success, particularly in a team-oriented environment. Um, we want to reward those individuals, right? So a perfect example of this would be Walmart. So Walmart raising minimum wage for store employees to attract and retain top workers. Another perfect example. I'm always going to go back to Southwest Airlines or Patagonia. Southwest Airlines, they now have a flight training program. They're short on pilots. They could go out and try and hire pilots, or they can take well-established, high-performing candidates who are baggage handlers or flight attendants or ticketing agents who are ambitious enough to want to become pilots and smart enough to want to become pilots and put them through a training program, right? That's a system that Southwest has right now, United has right now. That is how you develop high performance work systems. You've got amazing people who want to excel in their career, and you give them an opportunity and you reward them, right? Um, and so we'll pass the next one. Okay. So HR department responsibilities. These are the core functions of the HR department, core functions, right? Analysis and design of work, right? We want to look and see what's the most effective and most efficient way to get the most out of our employees. So we want to make sure we're looking at are they working in the right manner? Are they working uh, from a organization an organization specific uh, direction. Are they working, if we think about strengths, are they working at their full capacity because they're working within their strengths? Are they working within where their strengths lie, or are we just trying to plug a hole? Okay. So HR department's fully responsible for a lot of times analyzing and designing work. Okay. So they're ones that really write the job descriptions in partnership a lot of times with the management team. Recruitment and selection, right? They're out recruiting. They're out, most organizations have recruiters that just are out. Their only job is to go out and find top talent. Their one job is to keep a pipeline of people. So they recruit, they post all the jobs, they do a lot of the initial interviewing. If there's testing involved, they manage the testing process. If they need temporary labor, they're coordinating with agencies to make sure that they have qualified candidates at a moment's notice, right, for temporary labor. Okay, training and development. Most of the times, managers, the marketing manager, the accounting manager, the finance manager, the ops manager, those folks a lot of times aren't skilled at developing training programs. So that's when they partner. They go to HR and they say, hey, we want to do a training program on this. And HR a lot of times will develop that program for them. Okay, it starts with your orientation, making sure that people come in, that they're oriented to the just company as a whole. You've all been through probably company orientation, some of them good, some of them bad. If done right, the person feels like they've basically come to a home, right? So this is going to be their new home. They orient them not just on where's the kitchen and the microwave, but here's who we are as an organization. Here's our culture. Here's our history. Here's where we want to go. Here's why and customers are so important to us. So a true robust orientation really gets this person uh, bought into the organization. Okay. Skills training. And then finally, career development programs. Again, that's that Southwest piece. I want to be a pilot, or I want to be a baggage handler. I don't know, or I want to be a ticketing agent. Giving people opportunities to move up within their career will keep them and develop an amazing retention strategy. Okay. And then finally, performance management, making sure that people are not just living up to what they're supposed to be doing, but they're excelling in what they're doing, right? How are we getting the most out of our employees, and how are they getting the most out of the opportunities that we're affording them? A couple of things I want you to think about. Of these responsibilities, which of these do you think make the greatest impact on a company performance and employee satisfaction? And again, who's more responsible? Is the HR responsible for all this, or is management? I would say personally, what I think makes the greatest impact on employee satisfaction, believe it or not, It's the training and development, particularly that orientation piece. If you orient people well, get them bought in from day one, then guess what? They're going to be bought in for a lot longer. And even going back to the recruiting process, if you have a structured, well-organized recruiting process, the people that you recruit are going to appreciate that and potentially become more bought in earlier. And then I think, honestly, the career development piece is amazing. I think, again, if a company has a great career development program, people are going to want to stay. And in terms of company success, I would say performance management's a big one. And then the recruitment piece, making sure we're recruiting the right people. More HR department responsibilities. These are kind of the supporting functions. Again, employee relations, making sure that people are happy, making sure that we do surveys, making sure that anything that's coming around the corner in terms of company communications, that's all being sent out to employees. Personnel policies, right? Again, creating and communicating good policies. You'll have people in HR who are strictly geared towards policy writing and just creating policies, whether that's how a shift, how a third shift manufacturing uh, uh, process works, or what's the process for, unfortunately, terminating people? What's the process for putting people on a performance improvement plan? Those are all things that are typically supporting functions of HR. Information systems, right? Record keeping, make sure payroll's done, making sure that people's vacation time, their sick time, right? So all their time off is recorded and accurately managed. And then legal compliance, make sure that people who are harassed, there's an option for them to be able to come speak to somebody, and there's accountability for people, right? We need to make sure that in order to have a safe, professional, profitable organization, you have to have legal compliance. That means people are abiding by lawful behavior. All these are reporting safety inspections. We comply with federal standards. And so all that a lot of times has to do with HR. Um, Other strategic HR responsibilities. So going back here, we looked at kind of their core functions. We looked at their supporting functions. Now, this is where these are their strategic HR responsibilities. I really want you to again, the mindset for HR for throughout the years has been HR is a barrier for me to get things done. Most managers, that's how they view HR. They won't let me hire this person, or they're not recruiting well enough for this person, or they're making me keep this person. They won't let me fire this person. HR has always been a barrier. We've kind of shifted that mindset now, and HR really is now more of a strategic partner, a strategic business partner. That's why a lot of HR titles have changed to people and culture manager, or HR business partner, or strategic partnerships, human capital partnership. And so, again, these strategic HR responsibilities are all about planning, right? When a manager wants to hire a large group of people, it's HR. Those are the people that say, okay, here's what the market looks like. Unemployment's, high. There's lots of people out there. We can be very specific about the people we hire. Or HR, unemployment is low. Unemployment rate zero. We need to go out, we need to figure out how to find the right people. The thing is, HR needs to plan that before it happens. So we need to hire before the unemployment rate's low. We need to potentially lay off before the unemployment rate's high, right? So HR is involved with identifying the numbers and types of employees the organization requires to meet its objectives. Evidence-based HR, right? Collecting and using data to show the positive impact of HR practices. Talent management, right? This has to be a systematic, planned uh, uh, effort to attract, retain, and develop the top employees. The best companies, folks, hire the best employees and keep the best employees. I'm telling you, those three functions partnered with management are the three most important things that a company can do. Attract, retain, and develop the best people. Okay. And then sustainability, ability to profit without depleting resources, including employees, right? We need to make sure that if the company is in a down market, we're not just cutting people to cut people, right? We got to make sure that that's what, again, Salesforce, this is a perfect example. Salesforce overhired. A lot of the tech companies overhired, particularly on the sales side. And then when things didn't work out, they just let them go. It doesn't look good on the company. It doesn't look good on people. And so you need to make sure that you have a balanced effort to keep the right people, and you only let them go at the when there's no other options. No other options. Moving right along here. What employers look for employees, right? So what do employers look for in employees? Problem solving skills. These are all things, folks, that you want to make sure as you look to hire people, whether you're in HR or whether you're in management or when you're out job searching. What do employees really look for? Problem solving skills. Are you a problem solver, right? Or do you come to your boss with problems, or you come to your boss with solutions? Teamwork skills, right? We want to make sure that you can work well with other people. Work ethic, show up early, sometimes leave late, whatever it takes. What is the value that you bring? You need to really think about that. Analytical and quantitative skills. You got to be good at data. Nowadays, you have to be good at data and reasoning. And then your written and verbal communication skills, right? You have to be clear, concise, and effective, both verbally and in writing. Okay, we used to call them soft skills. These are not soft skills, right? These are attributes that you bring to the table. Okay, so you have to make sure that you're coming with these. And when you're looking for employees, how do you determine if somebody has these? And we'll talk about that later when it comes to the interviewing process. Okay. So, competence for HR professionals. These are the competencies. What do HR professionals need? They need human resource expertise. That's why if you're thinking about going into HR, I would I would look at a SHRM certification or some sort of HRIS certification. Um, they're about an 18-month program, actually less than that, maybe 12-month, 12 to 18-month programs. San Diego State has a great one. UCSD has a great one. I'm trying to implement one here. But yeah, so the you get some of the technical abilities from these HR certifications. So I would look at that. You have to have good business acumen, right? You have to be a good business leader. You have to be analytical. You have to be consultative, right? Don't be a burden. Go to your managers and consult them, right? You have to basically understand the importance of having a diverse workforce. You have to be ethical. You have to have leadership skills, and you have to be able to navigate issues well, right? You have to have a global mindset, right? You have to have a global mindset. You have to have effective communications, and you have to be a relational person, a relational person. And I will add one more. You got to be able to, you have to be able to be very mindful about speaking confidential. You have to be able to keep your confidentiality, right? Confidentiality in the HR space is extremely important, right? Extremely important. And so that gets lost a lot of times. And so you have to be aware of that. I would ask again, which do you think, out of all these competencies, which ones do you think are the most important? I really want you to think of that. And two, do you have some of these? Do you have all of them? Or do you have none of them? I doubt you have none of them, but I really want you to think. And I want you to think about, if I don't have, good analytical skills, how can I develop those? If I'm not the most relational person, how do I develop those skills? Really thinking about, these are the skills that HR professionals need. And I would actually say these are the skills that managers, just general managers, need. And so, if I don't have it, how can I develop it? Here's the supervisor involvement in HRM. I've already talked about this a lot. But so if this is the manager, How do they help HR be successful? So in turn, HR can help them be successful. First of all, help define the job, right? So the manager knows a lot about the work being done. So help HR define the job. Help HR forecast HR needs, right? Help forecast employee needs. Help provide training, right? The training is going to be done on a daily basis. You can't rely on HR to do all the training if they're holding a training maybe once a month. Every single day as a manager, you are training and supporting people. Uh, uh, Marcus Buckingham, who is the guru of strengths management, he says if you're a manager, your only job is to manage, right? You need to work on the business, not in the business, which means you should be supporting your staff. You should be having one-on-ones with them. You should be providing training, right? So you're going to typically be the final interview and select the candidate. HR does a lot of the pre stuff, but you're going to be the one to really make things happen when it comes to hiring. Appraise performance, right? So you're the one that sees them on a daily basis. Don't rely on HR. Those performance appraisals really are in your hands. Recommend pay increases, right? If somebody's worthy of a pay increase, if one of your amazing staff members are doing a great job, go out and fight for them, right? Communicate policies and then motivate with support from pay, benefits, other awards. You're the one that's really responsible for motivating your staff to perform well. Um, Ethics in human resource management, right? So the definition of ethics. Ethics are fundamental principles of right and wrong, right? It's the morals we live by on a daily basis, transitioned into work. Okay. So a lot of these have to do with employee rights, right? Free consent, privacy. This is where that confidentiality came into play. Freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, due process, right? Standards for ethical behavior. Ethical companies act according to four principles, emphasize mutual benefits in relationships. Employees assume responsibility for company actions, have a sense of purpose, of vision, and then emphasize fairness, right? So greatest good for the greatest number, right? Respect for basic human rights, and then fair and equitable, right? These are the things we want to be thinking about. These are the things that we want to be thinking about when it comes to ethics, okay? And then I want you to think about on a daily basis at your work, what are some of the ethical challenges that maybe you have to deal with on a daily basis? And then how can you apply these to human resource management or management in general, right? And if so, if there are ethical issues within your organization, are there reporting policies, right? Are there opportunities for staff to be able to go and speak up, right? You see something, say something. Okay. And last slide, careers in human resource management. Here are the things that you can do in HR, right? Compensation and benefits managers. Here's the salary levels, right? Human resource manager, training and development manager, labor relations, instructional design, human resource specialist, training and development specialist, human resource assistant, recruiters, recruiting management, talent development, legal. There's so many opportunities in HR that if you haven't thought of it as a career, you should. You really should. It is an amazing. I already said, I spent 20 years in recruiting, development, training, and let me tell you something, 20 of the most rewarding years I ever had. And so if you haven't thought about being in HR, I really want you to consider it. So, okay, so that's chapter one. I think I went a little bit longer, but I wanted to make sure I covered everything. I hope you all have a great week and let me know if you have any questions. We'll see you later.